Hey everyone, welcome to Kingdom Builder TV. Thank you so much for joining us today. There's a new film that came out today in theaters that I absolutely loved. I got a chance to watch it, and the guy who presents it is actually somebody that you might be familiar with. His name is Mike Rowe. Did a great series back in the day called Dirty Jobs, and if you like that show and you just like his humor and just the way he tells stories, you'll definitely like it. It's called Something to Stand For, and it's in theaters now through July 4th. And I have the director of the film with me today, and I just want to welcome him to Kingdom Builder TV, Jonathan Coussens. Jonathan, how are you doing today, man?
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Excited to talk about the film.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here. So the film is called, it's Mike Rowe presents this. It's called Something to Stand For, and I know that this is kind of based on a story that he had written. But for those that might not be familiar with it or had seen the trailer for it, can you tell us a little bit about this film?
Yeah, so it is a different kind of film. First of all, it's not a documentary and it's not really, Saving Private Ryan in a sense, but it's a film that has nine short stories, all based on Mike's really popular podcast called The Way I Heard It. And those nine stories are mysteries, and they're all about famous American patriots that I'm sure all of our audience is familiar with, but they're stories that people don't know about them. So we talk about famous presidents, famous Americans that we all know, and at the end of each little story, you learn something about someone you know but didn't know that particular thing about them. So it's a fun way to tell American history in a way that people don't normally hear it.
Exactly. And when I was watching it with my wife, the way that it's presented was actually pretty cool because you're kind of wondering, okay, where's this going? And, not only are these stories, it's really cool how it's presented, but, it was a learning experience for me because some of the stories in here, I do know part of the story, but I didn't know all of it. And the way that you
Yeah.
present it is cool. And it's very serious for the most part, but there are some comedic moments that I think will have audiences laughing because I know that there was some stuff in there that kind of lightened up the mood a little bit and
Yeah.
had me laughing to where I had to I'm like, okay, told my wife, I said we have to pause this and rewind it a couple seconds. So
That's
to
good to hear.
be able
We
to,
we
to be able to
really
catch what he said.
we really tried to make history not only come alive, we bring it to life with blockbuster style reenactments, but we also really, for people that don't like documentaries, we wanted to make a movie for them. For people that love documentaries, we wanted to make a movie for them. For people that like regular movies, we wanted to make a movie for them. So it's
Hmm.
like this really unique experience in a movie theater that you've probably never seen before. But you
Hmm.
know, Mike is a master storyteller, and I think when people watch the movie, they walk away laughing, crying, and hopefully reflecting on something that really matters. So, it was a fun movie to make, and everyone who's seen it has said I walked away with an appreciation of the sacrifice of our founding fathers, but they also
Hmm.
walk away going, wow, that was really fun. So that was really the movie that we were attempting to make, and it's great to hear that you had that same experience.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I have a friend of mine named Michael Wittig. He is a bass player from the band Pillars, also a professional bodybuilder. And
Yeah.
remember him posting pictures of a film that he was working on a couple of years ago, and I'm like, this looks interesting because in the picture still that I saw, he's dressed up like an old soldier
Yeah.
from the Revolutionary War period of time, and he couldn't say too much about it, but he said that it's a period piece. It's based on history. And then when I finally watched it, I shot him a text. I'm like, dude, I finally saw the movie, and I saw you in this scene. I said, so it's good to finally put that picture in place and see this film. And Mike Rowe, I've been a fan of him for a long time. My wife is a huge fan. She watched the whole Dirty Jobs series, and a lot of people may be curious. How did you get involved with this project? I know I've had a lot of directors on Kingdom Builder here, and one of the questions I ask for films that are based on real life stories and stuff is, how did this story get in your lap to direct?
Yeah. Well, great question. So, It all kind of starts with the podcast. First of all, I was a huge fan of his podcast called The Way I Heard It, and all of the stories that we do in the film are from his podcast. And so like back in like 2015, 2016, I'm also a huge fan of Mike Rowe, and I started listening to his podcast. I was like, man, this is awesome. And then about 4 years ago, my company Impact Productions got a phone call from his production company saying, "Hey, we're thinking about visualizing these podcast stories that, originally were meant for audio and now visualizing them for a screen." And so we've done about 78 different recreations of the podcast. And this particular film basically just cherry picks the best 9 patriotic stories that we could find. We met with Fathom Events. They're a distribution company that put independent films in theaters. And we kind of pitched them. We said, the country is divided and we're facing an uphill battle come the election year. What do you think about doing something that is not really on a party line? It's not really Democrat or Republican. It's not left or right. Like
Yeah.
it really is just a patriotic celebration of American history. And so Fathom was like, we love it. And, Mike was like, let's do it. It's a new venture for him going from the small screen to the big screen. And so we shot about, 4 of the 9 stories over the last couple of years. And then we shot the remainder last fall. And so, it's just been, we've kind of, Mike says we Forrest Gumped our way into a movie. And it's kind of true. It started as a podcast and it was booked and now it's TV. Now it's a film. And so somehow it's all come together. And I think these particular stories, we really invested really heavily into
Yeah.
making them blockbuster quality. And I think when people walk away, they have uh, they have an experience like no other. And so that's kind of the way that it got there. And we're just really hoping that people show up this weekend and then throughout the week leading up to the 4th of July and experience a movie that celebrates America and
Yeah.
celebrates what it means to be American.
Yeah, and so Mike himself, what was it like working with him? Because
Oh
we've
man.
this is the first time we've seen him like on the big screen. He's been on TV a lot, just on the podcast. But what was it like working with him on this project?
He's awesome. He's a great guy. Somebody, the saying, somebody you could have a beer with. I mean, like he's
Mm.
just the guy that he is on camera. He's no different. And what you see is what you get. Super gracious person. We have quite a collaboration. He's used to only doing one take with Dirty Jobs.
Mhm.
And film's a little different. You get a couple more takes than one take in
I
order to
know he
get it
mentions
right.
that. He mentions
Yeah.
that in
So
at the end, which is cool.
yeah, so it's pretty fun, and he's at his core, he's someone who values what we have for freedom here in the United States, and he wants to make sure that he does everything he can to communicate the sacrifice and the gratitude that we should all
Mm.
have, looking back at our history and then looking forward to our future. That it shouldn't be divided. It should be
Yeah.
we should all come together and really unite under a set of principles that I think our founders wanted, and so he's a patriot. I mean, like at his core, he's a patriot, and he works his butt off in order to do what he does. And I have a huge appreciation for the amount of work that he does. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and the one thing that I thought was cool is when audiences go see this, they'll see the beginning shot, and he really prefaces this whole story with I didn't make this for Republicans, Democrats, liberals, conservatives. I made this for American patriots, people who love this country, and I think that's awesome. And I add like since I've seen it, I would tell people make sure you stay to the very end because it's really cool. Don't leave until the credits are done rolling because you don't want to miss the really cool things that you close us out with. And I was thinking about, he mentions this at the very beginning, but he mentions that one of the things that kind of inspired him was, what Paul Harvey, the
Yeah.
famous radio guy, did with, his show called That's the Rest of the Story. And I think that's cool how that was incorporated in this because the funny thing is, I remember growing up. I didn't listen to Paul Harvey. I had no idea who it was. I just thought it was an old man talking on the radio. But my grandfather was a huge fan of Paul Harvey. And I remember going to his house, and you could not interrupt that man when he was listening to Paul Harvey because he would be like, "Dang it, boy, I'm listening to Paul Harvey. You have to come back later." So
Yep.
it's like
Yeah, I grew up the same way. I mean,
yeah,
it is totally in the ether of our culture and kind of, I guess it's also something that is kind of missing today. I mean,
yeah,
and Mike is, I think, trying to fill that hole. And I
yeah,
mean, he is, like I said earlier, just a master storyteller. And the things that Paul Harvey used to do, the bait and the switch, kind of at the end, revealing the mystery, like that's kind of the vein that we fall in with the movie too. And
yeah,
I know for people that grew up like us, listening to Paul Harvey in the back of Grandpa's car, I did. I mean, and it's a nostalgic uh harkening back to my
yeah.
childhood, and it's really fun. I mean, like it's just a fun way to tell a story. And
And it's cool
so
because Paul, you think back to Paul Harvey. I went back and listened to some of his old recordings from the 60s and stuff, and a lot of the stuff he was talking about is very prophetic. A lot of stuff that's
oh yeah.
happening now. Like he talked about things that were going to happen in the future,
Mhm.
and those things are happening now. And I was laughing with my wife because I'm like, if I ever did like a life story or something like that, she's like, who would you want to narrate your life story? I'm like, okay. So for a long time, I thought it would be Morgan Freeman because Morgan Freeman's the ultimate narrator
Oh yeah.
for stuff. But then I'm sitting here listening to Mike narrate this story. I'm like, okay, Mike could be
Yeah, Mike is the winner.
Mike could be that narrator.
Yeah.
That like, Jay did this in this period of time. Just the way he flows with his words and stuff. I mean, just the whole film. Something to Stand For was just a great story, and I would really encourage people to go and check it out this weekend. Because I feel, I feel that they're going to walk away with a new understanding of what it means to be a patriot, to be able to learn about our founding fathers and the sacrifices they made for this country. And I think a lot of people that have caused division in the country really seem to forget that aspect that these men that signed the Declaration of Independence, I mean, they sacrificed a lot in order
Yeah.
to give us the freedom and everything we have today. So that's what I hope people take away from it. So in closing, what are you hoping that, people take away from this movie-going experience once the credits roll for Something to Stand For?
Yeah, well, I think you said it. Paul Harvey was a little prophetic with his words, and I think nothing is new under the sun, right? Especially in our history. Like to think that we're going through something that our nation has never gone through before. Well, if you look at history, we've gone through these cycles before where we were extremely divided. And
Hmm.
I think our hope, I mean, at least my hope, I can't speak for Mike, but my hope is that people are able to look back at our history with recognition of people who've sacrificed for our freedom and gratitude, and then take that gratitude and look towards the future with hope. I think, if you don't inspire hope into somebody with a story, what are you doing? And I really hope that when people walk out of the movie, they say, we're not in new territory here. We've been
Hmm.
here before. We're going to make it through this, and there's hope for our future. And so, it's not a preachy movie at all. And to say I'm hoping people walk out with a theme. Yeah, sure. It's not preachy. I'll say that. But there may be a little reflecting at the end of it. And
Hmm.
I believe that people will look at it and go, yeah, we do have hope. We've been here before. So that's my hope for the movie.
That's awesome. Well, Jonathan, I really appreciate you joining us today. The movie Something to Stand For is in theaters now, so go and check out the website. Now, what is the website? How can people get information on where this movie's being shown?
Yeah, it's in over 1,000 theaters all over the country. You can get tickets at somethingtostandfor.movie. You can see where it's playing near you. Just punch in your zip code. It'll be in theaters now through the 4th of July. So it won't